Hey guys, and welcome back. Sorry about the lighting today. I don't have the light that I usually put behind here, and the light that's in the studio is like really intense and doesn't have an individual switch, so we'll make do. There are a couple things I wanted to talk about today. Obviously, swords. So, welcome back to swords. Before I get into it, I actually do want to talk about some Shinai today. I wanted to talk a little bit about the knife that I'm working on because I actually went into the forge today. Forge is just over there. I went into the forge today and got to work on this knife for a little bit. It is coming along fairly well considering a lot of the other stuff that I've done. I'll just give it a wipe down now, it's fine. So this knife is coming along fairly well. I got a good amount of practice. Oh, look at that. A good amount of practice on bevels and edge work, all that kind of angling. And it didn't go didn't go perfectly, as very few things do. But you can see that we're getting a nice amount of consistency on that line coming down. So the edge of the blade and the back of the blade have like distinct gradients, essentially. And then you just do it on the other side as well. And it is quite it's quite a process. The thing about it is when you're grinding, it's really hard to get that consistency the longer the blade is. But really starting to get there, starting to get a bit of confidence in my knife making, which is really, really nice. I will do probably some live streams or some pre-recorded videos of my smithing as I get a little bit more confident with it. I feel like there's not much to show yet, but we're certainly getting there. This is a very special one, and if you're watching this video, no, this is not a gift for you, unless it actually is, in which case you didn't see it here. But this is the current project that I'm working on, and God, it's going so much better than it was previously, and I've got all the various pieces of wood and stuff to make the handle, the pin. There's a whole bunch of stuff I need to fit together and see how it works and see how I'm going to get that working, but anyway, that's the knife project aside. So for any of you that are here for forging stuff, that was the forging section of the video. Now we're going to talk about non-metallic swords. Shinai, essentially, for Kendo. I do actually have training, God, in like 2 hours, but I'm just at work at the moment. We have some clients downstairs, so I thought I'd just pop in for a quick recording and talk about swords. So let's get into that. What I wanted to talk about today was specifically well, kind of more specifically this Shinai, but also this one. I bring a whole lot of these with me when I go to training, so I've got a few here. But let's start with this one, and then let's take this one apart, because these things are very interesting when you actually take them apart and you see what makes them up, because they're very fascinating things. But before we do that, I just wanted to show you this new Shinai that I got, and it is beautiful. So let me just cut to when I've got it out of the bag. Crap, there's another bag. There we go, easy enough. Now, this Shinai is absolutely gorgeous. I've only used it on one trading session on Monday, and you can already see some of the blue from my hakama and stuff, some of the dye. You can't really see it there. There is some dye already coming off as my hands start to imprint on this sword, which, I mean, it's a good thing. It's good to have your armor and your swords worn and used. You don't want them to just sit in the cupboard gathering dust. But I never like that about getting something new, because it always gets dirty and unclean and marked. But it happens. This sword is absolutely stunning. I mean, it doesn't, design-wise, it doesn't do anything different to the ones that I've currently got. It's still got a round grip and everything like that. But just the materials it's made of, the handle and everything, the overall composition of the sword is absolutely beautiful. It still feels nice and like solid because it's just come over from Japan, so it's still very, very new. I've never bought a Shinai so far. I'm still quite new into my Kendo career, but all of the Shinai that I get are from other people who have been doing Kendo for a lot longer than me. My girlfriend actually got me like really into Kendo because I was talking about it for a long time, and then she said, well, I have a sword, which is the sword you would have seen in one of my other videos. I have a sword, why don't you take it and go to a dojo and start learning Kendo? So I did that, and I don't use that sword very much now. It's quite sentimental to me, but again, it was a sword that was just given to me. I didn't buy it. And then I got a little bit further in, and I got two swords, one of which was broken recently by a visiting kendoka to our dojo, which is unfortunate, but it happens. These swords are actually quite bent, which you will, oh god, very much struggle to see. Oh no, there you go. You can kind of see that it's bent downwards here. That's just because the person I got this from has hit so many people that it's bent over. But I've never actually gotten a new Shinai until now, and this is a brand new Shinai. I unbagged it myself, took off the little strings, and it's a thing of absolute beauty. I don't want to use it too much in my training, as in all the time. Like, I won't warm up and do things like that with it. I'll warm up with swords like these or my older sword, and then use this for the proper training when we do jigeko and stuff like that, so actual sparring. But yeah, that is the new sword. It is absolutely gorgeous, and I am a huge fan of it. It is still pure white, like Wado Ichimonji, and oh god, it's so nice. But we will focus on that another day. For now, I want to take this sword apart. Mostly because, one, I have to turn this one around. So what you do after a while, if you want to get a little bit more longevity out of your swords, is when they start to bend at this area here, you take the whole sword apart and you turn all of the fittings around, so the string and all will be on this side then, and then you just keep using it in practice till it bends the other way. So that's what we're going to do. I've never done this before. I've taken not taken apart. I've helped put together a couple of Shinai when I'm at the dojo. One of my senpai, he's like the sword guy for everyone's Shinai in terms of fixing them, because what he can do is he takes them apart and then he cuts them down into shoto, into a short sword, so that you can practice Nito fighting, which is two sword style fighting. So he's very, very familiar with these things. I am very not familiar with these things yet. I'm getting there with using them, but I'm not quite a heart surgeon when it comes to taking them apart. But for tonight's training, I'm going to be using Bokuto and Shinai, so I don't have to use my strong sword for anything particularly bad today, or particularly tiresome for it. It'll be fine, which means I have a little bit of an opportunity to take this one apart here on a video. Okay, let's jump into the actual surgery of the sword. Let us first, before we do anything rash, just make some space. Make sure we've got everything we need. That is definitely going to fall over. Nice. Thanks for cooperating. Okay, right. So where do we begin with this? I imagine this is going to be the best spot to go to. So these things are actually incredibly intricate for how simple they seem, because one might think that it is as simple as a bamboo stick that you hit people with, but the design must have gone through many, many different stages and many different iterations, because it is quite complex and quite fascinating, really. I didn't think it would be so meticulous when I first opened up one of the swords. It's because the swords that I had, I have two of these swords that are bent like this. They're very, very similar swords, bent at the front there, I mean. And one of them, we had another person come to the dojo to train recently, and he was like, oh, I don't have a sword, can I use someone's sword? And I went, oh, I've got a spare sword, and more than welcome to it. And then I heard him hitting door around the room as he came around, and I went, oh wow, there's a good noise to that door. For those who don't know, door is the chest plate here. Mine's in the car. But a door is when you strike with the Shinai on one of those sides there, door or gyakudo. But it makes a very particular sound when you hit with the Shinai. And I was hearing them across the room and going, wow, those sound like solid hits. Little did I know, it was my turn next, and he came around and he just destroyed my Shinai. So we did 3 hits there, and he got 1 hit right there, and 1 hit down there, and 1 solidly on the door. So hit me 1 a little bit too high, 1 a little bit too low, and 1 just right. You know, the real Goldilocks trifecta. And unfortunately, he hit with such fervence that he actually managed to break my Shinai. So I'll show you a little bit more in depth what he did before. But one of these things here, because you can see this is actually just 4 different bamboo sticks. He actually managed to crack the inside of one of those. So there's not much recovering that unless I replace that one particular branch, but I might just cut that one to be a shoto since it's a little bit broken now, but we'll get there. So before something like that happens to this one, I just want to undo this and open it up and see how it's doing, see if it's broken anyway, see if there's any splinters I need to like shave down, and then rotate it so I can start bending it back. Which I don't know how common this is as a practice for all Kendoka, but it seems fairly common for a lot of the Kendoka that I know, at the very least. But yeah, I'm sure there are some situations where it is obviously and plainly better to just get a new Shinai. Some of them will just be so broken that there's not much you can do about it. Okay, so we've just undone that string there. God, I can't remember the names for all these things. I really should sit down and learn them all. But that tension is supposed to be kept there by that wrapping, so undoing that will... Oh wow, that's quite cool. See what I mean? How an intricate a design it is, because the string, God, goes up through this little leather piece here and around and up here and through and back and through and then back here and then secured. So I mean, that was just word mince, so you probably didn't understand anything I was saying there, but it's that complex just for the first part of taking the Shinai off. Just the way to secure the string at the back is so complex. I'm gonna throw a picture up here somewhere to give you the names of all of these things, because I haven't quite memorized them all yet, and that's going to be very frustrating for this video. So we're going to be talking about them in layman terms, just because I don't want to say the wrong thing and make it more confusing. But essentially, this string in Kendo represents the back of your sword. So, I mean, it's not just for show or to just hold the thing together. It does serve a purpose in telling you the orientation of your blade. And that is actually quite important for scoring points as well. But we're not going to focus on that for right now. Let's continue taking this sword apart and seeing what we can understand from it. I don't think I actually had to undo all of that, did I? Oh, I definitely did if I'm going to take the handle off. Absolutely necessary. But we don't really have to take the whole thing off just to spin it, but we're going to take the whole thing off because that's what we're doing for the video, so we're going to do that. This, I know, is called the kensen, which is just like the tip of the sword. And that's just like the leather piece that sits on top of it. Inside there's a weird stopper. I have no idea what it's called, but there we go. It's that little red bit that sits right here in the top to just kind of space the different slats of bamboo apart. But here's the first place we can really see it quite well. These are just 4 individual pieces of bamboo that we tie together to make a shinai. And it's very cool. Look at the... God, such a disorganized set. Look at the cuts on this wood. Look at the shape that they form when they all fit together. I mean, it's just so interesting how the small detail of how these were cut just makes them flow so well together, and the whole design comes together so well to make the Kendo's Shinai. I think it's just a very, very cool little thing. Right, onwards, taking off the rest of it. This is actually where it starts getting quite tricky, because this leather doesn't generally like coming off the wood, and it can be quite trying, as I've discovered in my earlier attempts of this with my senpai from the dojo. Ooh, maybe this is supposed to come off afterwards. This is why we do these things, and we try to do them as carefully as we can, because we don't want to damage anything. But I'm pretty sure that part comes off first. Maybe you just got to be a little bit smarter about it than I'm being. There we go. Just get over that little notch there. And it's as easy as that. Okay, so now that we've got the string, I mean, a string is just ito in Japanese, but there's definitely another name for the string that sits atop the sword. But there, we've got that. And now we're down to the actual, oh my god! This is why I wanted to take this thing apart. Because there are some things that you just, there are some things that you just can't see until you actually take the sword apart. And you can see now with this one that there is quite a fatal crack in there. Can I get a little bit of better lighting on there? No. Yeah, you can actually almost see through it. Oh god, that is not great. So this is one of the reasons why we like to take our Shinai apart and give them a check, because that's quite a fatal little flaw there for a pretty old little sword, which, I mean, it makes sense. This sword has seen more time in Kendo than I have, I'm pretty sure. Pretty confident about that. And yeah, that's unfortunately not something that we're going to be able to just sand out. I may actually, you know what I can do? I can take, thank you, I can take these 2 Shinai apart and Frankenstein them into one solid Shinai, because they've both got one broken bamboo. So if I smush them together, they should make one good sword, and I'll have about, oh god, I don't know, whatever remaining good pieces are left as spare parts for other Shinai. But for instance, if this one started to have trouble, I don't know if I could replace it with one of these, because they're very different ages, very different wear on them, all that kind of thing. I mean, they're still the same height, because I use a 39. They should be fine, but it's kind of like changing batteries in a remote. You don't really want to change one of them. You kind of want to change both of them, because otherwise you've got a battery at 100% and a battery at 4%, and then you're going to have to change it again anyway. Same with your tires. You don't really want to change one out of your 4 tires. You know, 2 or more, like 2 to 4 is generally better as I understand it. But at least I'll have some spare parts for some older Shinai that can go together. And I'll have my nice, beautiful one that's going to kind of carry me through most things. But yeah, it's fine. We'll get there. We'll get more swords as we go. So now we are down to the pretty much bare bones the Shinai. It doesn't take very long. There's not very many pieces to this, but it's actually quite daunting when you actually use these things. Taking them apart is actually just very different, especially if you've only got one and you've got training today. You don't want to be taking that sword apart and then trying to put it back together in time. But I've got other swords, so we should be fine. Now, I remember this being very difficult with the last Shinai I did, but I can already feel that it's starting to give, and it's going to be super easy. Oh, look at that. Beautiful. God, I'm being so careless. Can we just have a little bit of professionalism here? Thank you. Okay, so I don't really want to take it completely apart from this, because there's a little piece of metal in here that actually holds them together. But it's like really, really thin, like super, super, super thin. So even if I like drop this, it could damage that. So I don't want to take that entirely apart, but I kind of feel like I should take the broken Shinai piece off. So this is what we're in essence dealing with when we talk about Shinai in Kendo, is this concept. And this is very hard to explain to someone without literally taking apart a sword or showing you a video or something like that. Is they are 4 individual bits that are just connected together to make a sword. Wow, that is hard to balance all in one go. There we go. So you see it's all those 4 little pieces that divide up and are just joined up there. So all individual pieces kind of look like, I don't know, almost like an umbrella. You know how umbrellas get that weird kind of shape underneath the fabric. Kind of reminds me of that. But that's a Shinai. If you've never seen one apart, I hadn't until pretty recently. Even like 6 months into my Kendo career, I'd never seen a sword taken apart yet. So that was very interesting for me. But yeah, this is it. This is a naked sword. Sorry, this might get age restricted, but that's okay. So yeah, let's have a look at where this is broken. This one right here. That is unfortunately really quite split. Now we can get a little bit of a better look at it. We can see that it's really quite destroyed. It doesn't look massively integral, so it's not going to break away immediately. I wonder whose signature that is. It's not going to break away immediately, but it's the kind of crack that, in my fairly uninformed opinion of Kendo, that could break during training. That could actually break and like splinter off during training, which does happen sometimes, but this is why we take these apart in our spare time, to make sure that everything's okay. But that's good to know about. I did want to just do a video about taking Shinai apart, and I thought now that I have another Shinai to actually use in my training, now's a better time, as good a time as any. I wonder if we can see the little metal piece in there. We cannot. There's a little hole over there. Inside here is a little metal disc, essentially, that I do kind of want to show you, but I don't really want to take the entire thing apart. Fuck it, whatever. We have to replace one of them anyway, so let's just take the whole thing apart. And I think I do just kind of want to see if I can just pop these off, because, I mean, it's not too difficult. It is just quite delicate. And I'm going to have to replace that one damaged one anyway, so can we... I don't want to move the camera, because then I'll have to move the camera back, and that's just awful. Let's just raise the operating surface a little bit here. That seems pretty good. So what I'm just trying to do is just gently kind of raise one of these out of here. Should probably do it to the one that's actually broken for a start, which is this one. That's the one that I was doing. Good. So if we just gently give it a lift, we hear probably not the best sound in the world. Oh, good lord. What are we doing here? Yeah, we're separating. There's probably a very safe and easy and traditional way of doing this. I just don't know what it is. So I'm just going to gently try and separate these from one another without doing any further damage, which I don't know how possible that is, if I'm honest. I feel like I'm going to damage something. But it's separating off like a fair bit. You know what it is? It's because that's actually just really tightly in there. Maybe I just need to separate them broadly, you know, just kind of get them all a little bit further apart as we go down. And there we go. So what you're going to see there, see that little slice in it? Yeah, you can see it right there. That little slice is where they all connect together, which is, oh, that's trapped my thumb, something fierce. See that right there? There's that little disc I was talking about right there, which kind of holds them all together, and it's very awkward to film at this angle. Ah, nice. Okay, so that is a sword, mostly taken apart. We'll just get the last bit together. There we go. Oh, it's not actually round. It's a little square. That's really cute. I kind of don't want to take it off there because I only want to take the one that's damaged out, which I don't think I did. I think I took one of the other ones. Okay, so we'll just keep taking this one apart, and we'll just separate very gently off of there. Oh, look at that. Beautiful. See? The lack of snapping noise means I'm getting much more professional about this. And then those two shouldn't really be connected at all, should they? Wow, that actually just shows how well connected they are even without the little metal thing. But that... oh god, I'm not going to separate that one. That one feels like it's not wanting to separate, which means you must be the broken one. You are indeed. So, we've learned a little bit today. Well, I've learned a little bit today. I hope you've learned at least something today. There we go. Now we can look at this so much nicer because we can actually see the extent of the damage and all of its individual glory. God, that must have been a solid hit. I can imagine it though. Knowing the previous owner of the sword, I think that was a solid men. That was just a little bit too fervent. I mean, it's gonna be the result of a couple years of training and just whacking people over the head with a stick that'll cause that. So there's little splints coming off now and again all over there. So you see that little hair. So stuff like that, it's fine. If it just, yeah, there we go. If it just gets small little cracks in it, essentially, then you just sit with some sandpaper and you sand it over and you smooth it and it's fine. And you can put it back together. However, this does not seem to be what we have here, which unfortunately means there's no point in putting this back together right now. But it was actually quite fun to take it apart on camera and just kind of talk about it a bit and have a look at it, because it looks very weird when you put it contextually like that. You know, it is kind of like this knife here and these spare bits, because when you take them all apart, they look quite abstract, you know. It just looks like, honestly, firewood. It just looks like some sticks. But then when you put it all together with its other components, it comes through to be, you know, like quite a magnificent kind of contraption. So yeah, that's taking Shinai apart. I hope there was at least something interesting in this video for you. I think it's quite cool to get a little bit more of an in-depth look at some of these things. Even if we spend our time doing these things ourselves, we don't always, you know, invest in them to the same capacity, and we don't always break things down to the basic components to gain a better understanding of them. But I mean, even just taking this thing apart, you get so much of a better understanding of how it works when it comes together and what the aim of it is, and ways that you could make it more or less efficient. There are some that have like octagonal grips and stuff, so not that the grip is particularly different. I mean, it's this same kind of weird tubey thing, which feels really weird when it's not attached to a sword. But the actual grip here, these shapes put together would not be rounded. They would actually form octagons or hexagons or something like that. And that's just more interesting for grip, just because when you have a few more of those edges, it gives you a little bit more of a grip surface, as opposed to just a straight round grip. As someone who's very new to Kendo, I'm still practicing one sword style Ito, and I'm still practicing very basic stuff in terms of like broader Kendo. I'm not delving too hard into two sword style or anything like that yet. I really want my basics to have a much better, foundation before I go into stuff like that. So yeah, this was a fun little Kendo video with a little bit of knife thrown in there. Sorry, this stay. So that's the video. Thanks for watching. This was just a little bit of a breakdown, literally, of a Shinai and talking about it and having a look at the new Shinai, which is absolutely gorgeous, and I'm very excited to use it in my second practice today, second practice using the sword. And I will unfortunately have to go up to my senpai and ask for a plan of action on repairing this, because this one is it's quite a hectic fault. I don't think that's still going to be safe to use. But yeah, I will put this one back together, probably with the other one, to form a Franken sword. Not like Frankie's sword, although maybe that's why he called it that. That would be quite cool. Oh wow.